Is there any projects you're working on now or anything like in general?
Yeah, I've got two clients that are asking for things that are stretching me a little bit. So one of them is it's an e-commerce business in fashion, and they want to create a massive amount of content about all the latest innovation in their space.
Okay.
So we're talking about some kind of tech that monitors social media, distills it into interesting stuff that's happening right now that their audience will be interested in, and then produce a load of content, probably in N8N.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of it's fashion. Fashion's so subjective, and they're in a particular niche which I know nothing about. You know, it's 20-something girls. So I'm hoping the AI can. I'm hoping we can come up with something that creates content that's valuable. And I'm also scratching my head on the strategy, which is if we produce enough content and put it into some kind of knowledge base, then we'll get picked. You know, realistically, is there an SEO benefit to that if we're just producing a load of masses of AI content when there's no inbound links? And what are the chances of those sort of that niche content coming up as citations in AI searches?
Well, so you know they have the new, is it AI EO essentially, which sounds like old McDonald or something, but like an SEO. But now it's like, how do you make your content? You know, well, I guess it's not SEO. So it must be just AIO, right? So AI optimized, right?
I've heard it as an LLMO.
LLMO. Okay, there we go. These all just sound like songs, right? These are like Beatles songs now. LLMO, AIO.
LMAO.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I think that there is that. It's interesting because, like, if you've seen the reports that Reddit is the most cited website for.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's where the alpha lives, right?
Right. And so I wonder if that has any bearing on this, right? So there's all of the different, you know, probably protocols and best practices to be AIO, but then, well, what is Reddit just doing organically, right? They didn't design Reddit to be AIO, right? But it is. And so what are they doing? And maybe that's part of it, is trying to have user-generated aspects to your website, right? Where users are submitting their content, maybe that'll help. And then, so for the content, is this basically like blog posts and social media posts? Or
yeah, well, I'm thinking, I mean, they've got an e-commerce site with very little content on. So they originally said, let's get some content going. And then we come up with this ambitious workflow of monitoring social media, generating masses of content. But I'm now thinking that that's going to be a really good source for the next step, which will be lots of AI video ads.
Yeah.
So we'll create this pool of data that will get linked, of articles that will get linked to products. And then once you've got articles and products and concepts and ideas that are relevant, that people are talking about right now, in theory, we can produce relevant videos.
My suggestion for all of this is I would test and experiment, and before you build an entire automation pipeline, like, figure out the different pieces and are they actually working, right? Like, because theoretically you could have one person with an OpenAI API, you know, and some feedback, generating a pretty good amount of content, right, within like an hour or two. It wouldn't be completely automated, but then you would be a little bit more hands-on and tangible. But then, like, even see, it's like, okay, like you're saying, like, all right, we posted all this content. Did it even do anything? You know, like, does it
there's a high risk for that.
Right, because like you could spend like a month essentially setting up this incredible pipeline, and it's just generating content, and it doesn't move the needle, right? And it's like, well, and then even then, one of the important things, and we've talked about this in one of our Friday coaching calls, what is their goal, right? Like, what is a success metric here? And it's like, so if it is, hey, we want more website visitors, it's like, okay, like, how many are you getting now, right? What is the goal? What does success look like for the number of, because if it's, and I know you already said, and not to disparage or be prejudiced against 20-year-old girls, but the possible answer is we don't know, right? We just want stuff. But, you know, it is important to have these benchmarks, these KPIs, really kind of boiling it down to real things. Otherwise, you end up being that 95% of all AI projects don't provide an ROI, right? Statistics that MIT put out, where, if you don't know what the path is to an ROI and what their success metrics look like and what they're really looking to get out of this. And then again, from an even, more granular, it's like, well, what is the content that's actually bringing people in? How do we get that? Great. Now that we figured out how to do that, let's automate the whole thing to generate a whole bunch of it. I feel like too many people are just jumping in and just setting up like, an AI pipeline to generate things. It's like, okay, but like, is that going to solve your problems? And is the content that it's generating going to solve your problems? But I mean, the actual technology to do it is all there, right? And in pipeline, you bring in content from social media, you have AI generate a blog post, you have Nano Banana generate images for you, and then VO3 or Ray 3 or one of the threes makes it into videos, and you're good to go. Is that going to make them happy? So,
that's what they've asked for.
What they've asked for. But I think and I run into this a lot, where watch out with what your client asks for, because most clients don't actually know what they want, right? And so gentle pushback and making sure that this is actually, and it may be like you don't care, or it's like, all right, they've commissioned me, I'm going to do the project either way, right?
We should turn the question on its head then. So
right.
How does a fashion brand use AI to boost their content in a meaningful way that will expand their audience and conversions?
Exactly. Cool. Okay.
Do you know the answer to that one?
I don't, and some of it is, their own, sort of their like groundwork that they have, or the niche that they're in, or their audience, right? But part of it is checking to see, does any of this work on any level, right? And what is that? So again, if you post a bunch of blog posts, did it matter at all? Right? And then like, do they need to not just post the blog posts, but be sharing them on socials? Like, what is the entire sort of marketing ecosystem that actually does make it KPI, ROI, all the different I's, come in a way.
It's not really an AI conversation, is it? It's a content marketing conversation. Does content marketing work in this situation? You come up with a dream strategy and then work out a way of using AI to deliver that.
So you hit it right on the head, which is, and maybe other people on the call have experiences as well. Having an AI conversation, a lot of times it's like, well, before we get to the AI, let's talk about the core aspect here, right? Like, is this what is the marketing content? How is your operations? What is your sales pipeline like? And it becomes, I think part of being a AI consultant now is just being a business consultant, right? Because if their goals or their operations or their decision making is bad from the start, AI is not going to fix it. AI is just going to, again, be part of the 95% of AI projects that don't provide an ROI, right? And it's like, well, is that the AI's fault? It's like, no. Like, I mean, and one of the things I brought up when that study first came up, and I first did a coaching call on it, I was like, well, they say that about AI. Is that true? What's the percentage like for non-AI projects that people start, right? Where again, like they could have done a similar thing, but they didn't introduce AI, but it's like, oh, okay, here we're going to pay someone to write the blogs for us. We're going to find somebody who's offshore, right? We'll give them $10 an hour or less, right? We'll give them $4 an hour to write blog posts for us. Great. Did that even work for people, right? How many times did they make those choices and that didn't provide an ROI? And that goes back to the original concept, which is, are people, teams, businesses, setting up projects in a smart way to begin with before they even introduced AI? And then I think people think AI is the solution to all their problems, when it's like, no, it's more complex than just doing it the regular way. So if you haven't even figured out a non-AI solution. Just adding AI to it is, if you do it right, possibly, exponentially better, right? But then if you do it wrong, it's just still going to be wrong. Okay, that was we already got 9 minutes out of that, so, or maybe even 10. All right, well, Maddie, good to have you back. Anybody else?
Thanks.
I see some other, yeah. Anybody? I see some other new names here. Omar Picardo, maybe I'll say. Omar, are you new? You can throw something in the chat, or even just turn on your mic if you want, or ignore me. That's always one of the best options. Who else do I think is new? Georgetta, I know you're not new. Arnett is definitely not new. Aaron, I can always recognize by We Dig Code. That helps out. ITeak AI is not new. John, maybe Marv. You guys new? Michael, almost certain you're not new. Payush, you're probably not new, but I know that we at least have another Payush floating around. You are new. Okay, you are a different Payush. Okay, Payush, what brings you here?
Hey, I recently joined 2 days back this AI Profit Boardroom. I'm looking for answers actually. I have some clients in USA and they are brick and mortar stores, and like they don't have a really good digital presence. So currently I'm working for their websites and all, and they asked me that what can we do with AI? Like,
Yeah.
can it help in our productivity? And I didn't knew the answer, so I thought I'll just look around, maybe find some clue on how to get started. So that's why I'm here actually. That's the reason I joined this call as well. So get some ideas from experts, get somewhere to get started.
Cool.
So
So okay, for it. Yeah.
I can give you a background. So basically,
Yeah.
these are steel manufacturers, uh, precast manufacturers in USA, and I have a good working relationship with them. And I'm not sure. Uh, Maybe if any other information you need, you can ask me. I can give it to you.
For sure. So, I mean, when I like to talk to clients about things, one is what's one of the easy sort of conversations, or easy-ish entry points is there a task that you do that takes up a bunch of time, that's really boring, that nobody likes to do? Because typically there is that within a company, or like where are your pain points? What is the stuff that is taking up a lot of time? I also really try to push this idea that, because you are, quote unquote, an expert on AI, right? That's the idea, and technology. They are an expert on their business. That's what I tell them all. It's like, you're an expert on your business, so I need to, you know more about your business than I do. You know more about your industry than I do. I need to get that information from you. And so, what is taking up a lot of time, that work that nobody likes doing, the most boring work possible? I always position AI as being great at that, right? Where, like, data entry type of things, things where it's very repetitive, and but like you never have time to do it sometimes, or we're hiring somebody and they're doing it, and you're paying them $20 an hour. It's like, well, we can get AI to do all that work in an hour for $1. So something like that works well. But then also really pushing them, like, what is going to give them a return on investment? Like, really, again, like, a lot of being a good AI consultant, as we were just talking about, is being a business consultant. And it is a somewhat difficult conversation, or it can become awkward, because they want to talk about AI. They want to talk about ChatGPT, and they want to talk about something they just saw on LinkedIn, or something that their friend just recommended to them. But really, the core conversation of finding out about their workflow, and then what would generate more income for, like, if they forget about the concept of AI initially, but like, what would help them generate income? And then, okay, whatever that is, start to break it down into pieces, and then into more pieces. And it could be like, hey, we need more customers, or we're getting a lot of customers, we need to be able to convert them better, or we want to reach out to them in this way, or whatever. And so AI can provide a solution, but first you need to really understand it from a business perspective. And then bring in an automation solution of some sort, or any other sort of custom AI. If they have websites and they're getting a lot of web traffic, there are chat bot solutions or AI bot solutions, but then those can be, complicated, right? To do them well. And they would take, and like any of this stuff, if they want to do AI and they want your time in your services, it's going to cost them money. And so finding something that will generate ROI off the bat is the best. Like if it's not going to save a lot of time that they're already paying for, or it's not going to generate income, it'll be cool and all. They'll hire you for a little bit, but then it's hard for that to become a sustainable system because they didn't make any extra money. They're paying you money now, right? And without getting that ROI on their investment, they're much less likely to keep going down the AI road, right? But then if you can first figure out what is going to make them more money, get them either more clients or more business or increase the production speed, anything like that, then from there, every piece that goes into that, break that down, see where you can fit in AI. Sometimes it's not creating an entire AI solution for everything, right? Where it's like, okay, just get rid of this person, replace them with AI. Instead, it's like, no, keep that person, but then supercharge them. Give them AI tools that they still need to spend time with. But here, we will take what usually takes an hour, and now it's 2 minutes. This is another task, and it took 3 hours, and now once you review everything the AI gave you, it's 10 minutes. So now we can make that one person much faster. But then even from there, okay, now they have this person and their job's a lot easier. What do they do, right? So I do think that a lot of companies, I was just talking to somebody this morning about this, where ChatGPT, and I bring this up a lot, changed the game. Like there's a lot that goes into the interest in AI right now. A lot of people who are on this call right now is because of N8N, right? And they're interested in N8N. But ChatGPT was the gateway AI, right? People started to see that, and it has opened up their mind to AI. But really, for a lot of them, they need help with their business and understanding their workflows and making them more efficient and really figuring out what is going to provide them value, and that supersedes the AI. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, and I've told them, see, these are B2B businesses. So basically, they don't, connect to a lot of customers, and all these B2B relationships are, well established.
Right.
I don't think they find new customers every now and then. So I told them that, and there is this basic, problem. They don't have a lot of answers. They just want solutions
Right.
to, and if I ask them questions, they generally tell me it's your, you should figure it out.
Yeah.
I think there is some communication problem as well. And since I am not located in USA, I can't, physically visit that plant and, understand their operations. That's another problem I'm facing. So I'm not sure how to deal with this.
Yeah, and I found this also that um, some companies just, and I'm not necessarily saying this about your clients, have bad decision makers, right? They must have some good decision making if they are at this level of success, but potentially, for a company, they can start off with a certain level of the success, but then how do they grow? How do they expand beyond that? And sometimes they can't because of poor decision making. And it sounds like potentially that is what you are going to be getting from this client, right? Where if they are positioning it to you like, no, you're just supposed to solve this for us, that's not the greatest partner in figuring these things out, and that'll happen. And potentially you just have to do your best, find work here, gives you an opportunity to create something that does provide as much value as possible, and is a good experience for you, but maybe doesn't have that high, that long tail upside because they're just not going to make a good decision. They're going to, yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to anybody else who's new who wants to talk about what brought them here. Renata, maybe you're new. I feel like maybe I recognize your name as well. I just bought the membership for 1 year. Okay, so you are new. So I started getting into it and saw there was a Q&A. I want to see how it is for the first time. I'm not sure if I have my mic working, so just here to observe for tech. If your mic doesn't work, that's fine. If you want to just throw in the chat though, what brought you here? What types of projects are you interested in? How can we provide? I'm going to probably use the word value a lot today. How can we provide more value to you? Hi, Jeff. Omar is new, English teacher who wants to pivot from working one-on-one with non-native English speakers to creating a product, specifically an English pronunciation app to help people communicate better and increase their confidence. I'm not technical, don't have experience coding, but I'm ready to learn. Okay, so let's take that. One of the things, so really, and I do a few different coaching calls on this, which is vibe coding. So these days, you don't necessarily need to be super technical, right, to be able to put together an app or, at least a demo app, right? So Omar, at your position, you could, with some vibe coding sort of what would I say, tutoring or tutelage, or just getting in there and trying it out, you could probably put together a good demo app. Being able to launch it so that people worldwide could use it, at a certain point in time, unless you're really into this for the long haul, you're probably going to need help with taking it to that next level. But putting together an app that proves the concept and shows investors or potentially, whoever, an organization, maybe a government organization or something that you could get funding in and then take that and go farther with it, that is for sure possible. I feel like that is attainable for people who are not coders. A few different things to keep in mind as you're doing that. And then also N8N potentially gives you the ability to quickly put together a back end, and then you could, again, easily, like one of the things that vibe coding is pretty good at is putting in front ends, as long as you describe it right. There have been a number of people who are on this call who have tried out vibe coding. And they run into a similar set of issues that you are potentially going to run into, or what your journey is going to be like. One, most likely the first time you try this, it's not going to go right. And that's fine. If you're a teacher, you must understand this, right? That it is not about your first try. It is about, and you might need to just totally throw it away. You go the wrong way with things, and you need to just ditch the project and then try again, and then try again. Probably sometime around your third try, it's going to start clicking and working. And that first time around, one of the things I would suggest to do is, if I were to do this, if I was somebody who is not a coder, and I wanted to start putting something together and I wanted to vibe code it out, go to Claude. Claude's my buddy. I prefer that over ChatGPT. And then you do the pro account, $20 a month, maybe even $50 a month if you're really planning on putting in time onto this. You're probably not going to get to the $200 a month one, at least initially. And tell it what you want to do. Say, hey, I am not a coder really, but I've heard about vibe coding. Claude's going to know about vibe coding. And I have this project I want to do. I want you to walk me through best practices for vibe coding, how to start setting up my projects, things to think about, common mistakes that vibe coders have, and we're going to use this concept of a project as our first start for a vibe coding project. But explain to me how vibe coding works and things I should look out for. Like, have it give you, it's your new teacher, right? And have it explain some of these issues to you and things to watch out for, and then go through it back and forth, and really just try this as your first one. And not to discourage you, but to potentially encourage you down the line. It's probably not going to work out. It's okay. And if it does, great. And possibly it does because I gave you this prompt to give your LLM to help you out with this, and have it suggest to you, it's like, you're going to need an IDE, you're going to need a platform to do the coding on, you're going to, need to be able to set up env files, and you're going to need to be able to have virtual environments. You're going to want to break your projects up into multiple folders, and like you're going to want to have good organization, and you're going to need to eventually do git ignore possibly, and all these different things, and you're going to need to use Flask and HTML as a front end and a bunch of different things. And so your first one, again, is possibly going to go wrong. But if you want to do this and you want to get into the whole thing, then be prepared for this to take a little while, right? But I think if you started off on the right foot, what you're looking for is going to be very possible. And I would also start to really think about this and do this back and forth with Claude, or you could even do this part back and forth with GPT-5 or something, thinking about the user flow and the usability of what you're looking to do. Like, how would somebody interact with your app? And is this going to be gamified, right? I am just throwing this out there. So I use Duolingo. I'm trying to learn Spanish right now. Duolingo, I don't know if anybody's used this. You might hate Duolingo. It's fine. Duolingo is probably one of the most well-designed apps I've ever seen. Just the things that it does, where it is gamified, where it gives you feedback, where it gives you nudges, the fact that it like vibrates the phone when you're using it and things happen, the little noises, all of that different stuff is completely engineered to make it so that people are addicted to Duolingo. And that's probably a next level sort of design that you'd want to do with what you're building, but that's the type of stuff that you want to be thinking about and how to make your product the best. Okay, the chat is full of things. I need to move on to, or start to see Renata. Okay, you live in Finland, but Brazilian born. Thank you for the sparkly heart. Have a company with your daughter's husband, so your son-in-law, launching a startup with AI for the Brazilian market. You're doing a course in Brazilian online for startups that is awesome. You are vibe coding or context engineering coding and software tester as profession. Okay. Having a lot of work and trouble building the app with Claude Code, struggling building it. I don't do Claude Code. I usually use the Claude interface online, and then have conversations with it back and forth, and then copy and paste from there into the platform. I was working with a Python MCP server that I was allowing to do things all by itself. I feel like human in the loop is a term that gets used a lot, right? Where it's like, I think that we have to watch out how much we allow the LLMs to do things that are unchecked. And one of the things, and this also goes for Omar as well. If I ever ask it, especially for a file that like I'm a little bit not totally unsure about, but if I ask it to vibe code out a file, a lot of times what I will do, especially when there's issues where it's not working for me, I will describe what I want the file to do. I ask, does this make sense? Do you understand it? Explain to me what you're going to do first before you even code. And then it explains what the concept is, and then it codes it all out, and then I'll run it, and if there's issues, I'll ask it again, okay, tell me what's going on in this code, explain it to me, explain why we're having problems. Like, really use it to explain a lot of what's happening and have a conversation with it. And challenge it and have it challenge you. If you're giving it a concept for what you want to do, ask it, how is this going to go wrong? What's going to be the problems here? Explain to me why this isn't going to work out, or does this make sense? Is there a better version of this? Really, and that's part of the reason why I use the interface when I'm doing this instead of just Claude Code, or even again, like when I was doing it with the MCP server. I think the back and forth that you can have with the LLM about what you're doing is absolutely fundamental. And then we've also brought this up before. If you're trying to vibe code an end-to-end workflow with the LLMs, it is probably going to go terribly. There is a lot that you can do potentially to get it to go well, including sharing the API documentation for the nodes that you're having it create, being very explicit with it, making sure it only codes a small portion of the workflow at a time and then just iterates on that small portion. And that also goes with your projects. If you're vibe coding something out in Python or JavaScript or HTML or whatever, it will put together an entire thing for you. Don't let it. Or if you do, be prepared for there to be a lot of problems with that. You really want to take things one step at a time. And that's better also for you, for like understanding what you're putting together. And although it seems like it's going to take longer, what is it? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? If you try to speed run through any of this stuff, the N8N workflows, either you're setting up yourself or you're having one of the LLMs vibe code it for you, or a Python project that you're having vibe coded, or even if you're just doing the Python project yourself, like all of these different things, you want to have a good architectural map of what you're doing, a good plan, a good roadmap. You want to take everything piece by piece. You want to have milestones. You want to be able to check in with those milestones. A lot of these best practices that people use when they're actually coding a project, you want to stick with those and maintain those best practices, and then but then just use the AI to help you along with that, right? And again, sometimes, especially if you're first starting out, you can ignore everything I'm saying if you want, because at least for me, I learned from my mistakes, and maybe that's just the best way to do it, right? Like this guy who's on this coaching call, what does he know? Why should I listen to him? He didn't even introduce himself yet. We're half an hour into the coaching call. And so, no, I'm just going to do it my own way. That can be really useful for learning. Hey, don't do it your own way. You should actually do it a way that, and possibly the only way to learn that is to try and have it all go problematically. And then you're like, oh, okay, now I see why everyone says you should architect this thing out and not go too fast. Even if the AI will enable you, right? It will go faster than you. You're like, oh, wow, like this thing's going completely fast. This is great. I love this. It's going to put all of the things together for me. It's not even saying there's going to be a single problem. And then there are a bunch of problems. It's like, oh, okay. The AI will, again, push all of your worst sort of speed running tendencies. Okay, Charles, ex-graphic designer, awesome. WordPress website designer, AI is great for that. I'm great at code or math. Not great, maybe. Not great. I've self-hosted N8N with Docker on my Mac. Perfect. I'm having problems with some of the logic operations like send to Slack online. You can get predefined options. Self-hosted, you don't get the presets and plug and play parameters. Can I do stuff on the free option online and import it to my N8N? Also, how do I hand over and package it for a client once I'm proficient? Okay, there's a lot in there. Can I do stuff on the free option online and import it into my N8N? I think so. I don't do that myself often, or I haven't done that, but I feel like if you're on the free option, I don't know though, because I haven't been on the free option possibly ever. I had to get a membership as soon as I started it. So they might be limiting you on the free option. The best solution for some of this stuff is, one, I was going to say ask an LLM, but their knowledge of N8N is very poor, and so that can be problematic. How do you hand over and package it for a client? So we did have a coaching call on Friday that went over a bunch of these different aspects. You might be able to look up that video if it's ready. I don't know where the videos are. People ask me. I never go and watch the videos because I hate hearing myself talk, which is weird because I talk so much. You figure I'd like it by now. But if you are Dockering it, that is definitely the first solution there. And then you're self-hosting it. But then at some certain point, you need to be able to give them access to this, right? And so, I mean, you can get them to host it, right? I had a similar project and I just had them. There is a company that does simple hosting that was really easy, and I just had them get an account and then gave me access to it. And then I launched it for them. And then they could just connect to it. I forget the name of but there are these pretty inexpensive, easy to set up API hosting or like web hosting solutions for them that you can look into. But I don't know about the free, being able to do moving things over from the free account to a paid account. But it sounds like you're pretty far along if you're already self hosting any ends with Docker. As you said, you're not great at code or maths, but you must be doing pretty well if you've made it that far. And yeah, okay, let's look at Michael. My problem with vibe coding is that people who know absolutely nothing are talking to a college level intern who knows little or nothing about real life. So if you don't ask it the right questions, and if you don't know much how to do that, you get garbage out. That is 100% true. I think that we're in a very interesting time right now. All this stuff is brand new, right? And there aren't really good protocols for this. And there is, if you look on social media, you'll see all these things where people, oh, look what I vibe coded. I vibe coded this in an hour, and look, I made millions of dollars for my startup. Most of that stuff is nonsense. It is not true. And it's still, what I have found is that you still need, I brought this up before, you still need to have a good idea of what you're going to, not even like the idea of what you're going to do as a end product needs to be good. Otherwise, you will vibe code out something that is useless to people, right? And nobody's going to want it. And so you just spend a bunch of time vibe coding something that doesn't do anything for anybody. And then again, you need to be using some best practices. They're not impossible to figure out, but again, you should turn this into a conversation. The LLMs you should use as a mentor and as an assistant, essentially. And it's a very strange sort of, because typically a person is either one or the other, but an LLM is both, right? It is this huge repository of information. It's extremely knowledgeable about all these different things, but then you can tell it what to do. Typically, you don't have that relationship with somebody. If you know somebody who knows as much, you know, or is like kind of, right, like as much as these LLMs know, you would never tell them what to do, right? Not really, unless you were a really powerful like CEO, right, who was hiring all these people and you could just tell them what to do. But at the same time, you wouldn't be learning all this stuff from them. You would just give them projects and they would do them. So you do have this interesting relationship where, you know, I think some people just use it as the assistant, right? It's like, here, just do everything for me. It's like, no. Don't just have it do everything for you. Have it teach you what it's doing as it's doing things for you. That is going to get you farther along. And then you also will potentially get faced with the fact that your idea is not very good. That happens, right? And that's what I was saying, you know, for your first project, you might have to scrap it all together because we think these ideas are good, and then we try to put them into practice, and they're not great, right? And that's why maybe that first idea isn't going to generate you all the millions of dollars you wanted. But if you do this and you stick with it, and you do have some good ideas, something can happen while you're working on that first project that actually either you figure out how to pivot it and turn it into a really successful project, or you realize, oh, this isn't what I need to do. I need to do something totally different. And you've kind of built up some battle scars, which you're going to need to do. And you're going to need to learn all these different pieces. And again, the one thing that is great is that you do have this 24/7 troubleshooting solution. And it's not perfect, but none of the troubleshooting solutions were ever perfect, right? But it's pretty good. And if you work with it, you can get fairly far on building a solution. There is a lot of sense I'm not going to ignore, for sure. Another really good use of vibe coding is for proof. Yes, for proof of concept. Yeah, POCs, it is great for. Okay, 40 minutes in, I will introduce myself finally. We've gotten a lot of new people. So I'm Dr. Jeff. I have my PhD in neuroscience from USC. I also got my master's in biomedical engineering. I did both of my thesis on AI and computer vision, optic flow estimation. When I graduated, nobody cared about AI. They definitely didn't care about computer vision. And so I went into marketing initially, well, internet marketing, website development, web design, SEO, CPM, CPC, email marketing campaigns, video production and post-production. And then I went to go work for a startup where I was the head of operations, and I handled the sales teams and the marketing teams, and it was an influencer marketing company, so I handled the influencer marketing teams and operations. And for a really long time in my career, things didn't make any sense at all, right? Like I had this PhD in AI, essentially, but then was working in marketing and sales and operations. And that was just very strange for people. They didn't understand why that was happening. And then after that startup stopped down because it didn't get funding. I got back into AI and started with machine learning and computer vision projects. And then ChatGPT totally changed the game, right? It put AI on the map in a very real way, and then really popularized generative AI. That along with all of the image and video generation platforms. So now I do a lot of LLM, GraphRag, LLM, RAG LLM systems, agentic systems, image and video generation, automated workflows, a lot of Gen AI work, although the best Gen AI pipelines and platforms also have traditional predictive or analytical AI as part of it. And then I've done workshops for professionals and business owners on adopting AI. I think if you were on the beginning of this call, that probably makes some sense based on the what do I say, the advice I was giving. And now I work with it. Now all of a sudden, after like over a decade, the plan makes sense. Why would somebody who has a PhD in AI be working in sales, marketing, and operation? It's because now people in sales, marketing, and operation want to know how to integrate AI into their systems. I didn't plan it out this way. Obviously, that would have been a very strange plan. But it did end up working out. So yeah, if you have, today is Q&A day. Yeah, everywhere. I also did a bunch of teaching as well, Omar. So that popped up. So today's Q&A day. We've been going over Q&A with some of the newer folks. But if you've been here for a while and you want to throw in a Q&A, Mary Fox, though, you seem like you might be new. L. Christine Dilly, Marv Johnson, you all are potentially new. It's hard when we don't have profile pictures, though. Sarita, I don't think you're new, although now that we've switched over to Google Meets, the other Sarita, if you're the same one, never had a profile picture, so it's tough to tell if you are that same Sarita. But any of the new people, or even some of the not as new people, questions, topics, I need to find 1 million plus view content, create title, hook, caption, hashtags, and post them to all platforms. Okay, that's quite the topic. Well, so one of the things is you need to find 1 plus million view content, create title, hook, caption, hashtag, and post them to all platforms. Well, we do have some A&N workflows that do that, essentially do that. So if you look in our N8N templates on the classroom, I know that we have, I've done a coaching call on one that would post to all the major platforms and would generate content for you. If you are going to use that one, though, or any of them, I would suggest, what I suggest for everybody who's doing these platform or who are doing these workflows. One is you should iterate and break it down into pieces. Make sure it's working on one platform, then make sure it's working on another platform, then make sure it's working on another platform. Really test out the content that it's generating and making sure that you think that content is going to be high quality and is going to work well. And then, the one thing that is good about N8N, I learned this from doing influencer marketing for multiple theme pages. Yes, okay. The reason why I think that AI and automation can work really well for social media posting, or for social media marketing or whatever, is because of the consistency. And so I used to work with some of the top influencers in the entire world, right? Like some of these people, they were kids. Some of them were, one of the influencers I worked with was like 11 years old. But then that wasn't the typical. He was probably the youngest one. Some of them were 18 or 19 years old. Some of them were 22-year-olds, and they were making $10-20 million a year. It was a very, very surreal situation to work in. And they all had the same story, though, which is you have to post, they would have to post for 2 years before anything positive happened. Essentially, they were posting content, videos, typically those videos, these are YouTube influencers, they were posting videos for like 2 years before they got any level of success and made any amount of money from it. And you have to be somewhat like borderline insane to do that. Right? Yep. Consistency. Exactly. Most human beings are not built for that. Most younger people today choose influencer as the #1 job they would like to have. Almost 100% of those, or 99.9% of them, are not willing to do what I just said, are not willing to post a video once a week for 2 years and get no positive feedback out of it. It's just an extremely difficult thing to do. Making video content is difficult the traditional way. Posting it that much and not getting positive feedback on it is very, very tough. Some people are able to, cut the line. Very, very few do. Who are just generate something that goes viral really quickly and then are able to build off of it. I have met some people who've done that as well. But then they actually had less staying power than the other ones. But AI can solve that problem for you, right? But you do still need to figure out good content that will work well, right? Like, just because you are posting content every single day or every single week doesn't mean that your page is going to be successful. You need to figure out what is going to be good, high quality content. And AI can help you with that. It can help you with the brainstorming process, right? Like, AI can help with all of these different things, but that is part of it, right? What is going to give you a good idea, have it brainstorm ideas for you, take every different piece and have it broken down, like, have it outline good concepts for you, or outline what you're going to put into your videos or into your images or into your whatever, and then test out the different platforms, right? So then you can get image generation out of OpenAI or out of Nano Banana, right? Stable Diffusion with a Replit system, all kinds of different solutions. What's producing the best image content for you, and then the videos from that, and then the text. And there's probably a portion where you're still going to need to be involved in it. But you can also get it so that it reduces your commitment to time by like 90% or something like that. And with that reduction in time commitment, then this can be a little bit more sustainable. And then some of it you can just allow to go for a while. So there are solutions in here, but there is still a level of creativity and consistency you are going to need to provide for it. But then also, again, the AI can help you with that as well. Anybody else who is new or who is not as new, who wants to, you can turn on your mic even. I have no problem with mics being turned on. Ask a question. Tell me about something you're working on. Christine, I feel like you might be new as well if you want to throw something out there. Sanjay, I don't think you're new, although I know I definitely get a Sanjay here fairly often, but there's probably more than one Sanjay in the world, so I'm not 100%.
Thank you.
Question.
Actually, I have one query, Jeffrey. Yeah. So I was just wondering, like, if you build application using LangChain and LangGraph and all those stuff using the open sources of Hugging Face and the open routers, you can save huge money when we invest the same thing in N8N and make.com for some batch calls, right? Like, means I'm just wondering, what is your view? Like, means how optimally we can use, and which one will be good for to use Python based, or which one be good for to use N8N and make.base? It's not just like no code, but in general, what if you want to give a view, like, yeah.
Yeah. I started with Python and using things like Hugging Face, and I mean, a lot of the stuff you can still integrate into N8N on some level. And I do think that potentially the value with N8N is that anybody can sort of put the pieces together. But I would also say that, like, one of the things I run into is at times it's almost easier to vibe code out a Python solution if you know the IDE, if you know how to, like, if you know your way around how to do things, than to just do N8N, because vibe coding with N8N is very poor, and it does give you a good visual way to see things and to test stuff out. But then if it's faster to just vibe code it through for a Python solution, then that might be better. I do think it depends on the person. And that visual aspect of N8N helps. I think that especially if you don't plan on vibe coding and that just isn't working for you, then N8N is going to be faster. But N8N does cost, right? It is going to cost more if you are building a platform to get people to use, like if you're building a SaaS type of platform or something that everyone's going to use. If it's going to be for a client and it's for their usage, N8N is a lot easier for them to, like, it just gives them something simple where it's like, here, click this every day, or it gives them something easy to look at and for them to make changes to. So it really depends on the person who's building it, your use case. But I do think that especially if you are going to be a vibe coder or you're going to use an LLM to help you through this, you may very quickly find that it is easier to potentially do these things with just doing it through Python and setting things up that way. But again, then once it comes time to deploy and making this bigger and better, it is easier to go through N8N, but then N8N is going to charge you. And so but then a lot of it does really come down to, great, you could set it up in N8N or you could vibe code it out in Python. Does it actually work? Is it producing, what you really want? Did you spend time on this and it makes a bunch of sense? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no, right? So I don't know. I think at this point in time, if they were to update the LLMs, or if you found a really good prompting system to get them to vibe code out N8N pipelines, well, we did the MCP server, the N8N MCP server coaching call a couple of weeks ago, and I've been using it off and on. But even the MCP server version of an N8N workflow developer, it's better, I think, than just using the regular LLM interface to do it. However, you still need to be pretty on it with your prompts. And, but that is the other thing, is like, if you can figure out a good prompting structure for them, I think that helps out a lot. Sometimes that does mean feeding it in the API documentation and things like that. But yeah, it's tough.
Because the way you showed the MCP integration with Claude is amazing. Like, when you can do anything, right? With the prompt itself, with the Claude, you can end the story, complete story, like complete use case. Yeah, end to end, you can integrate and you can get everything. But what if you want to sell this to the client? Suppose you have built the product, okay, which can be reused or something. As you rightly said, like, miss, if we build using LangChain and Graph, then but creating microservice, scaling, podding, all those things are now standard, right? It's not a big deal at all, right? So, but still, if you have models which don't require so much huge processing transactions through N8N or make that which hugely charge, and LLM also is not that costly for those routine. Yeah, so I'm just wondering, like LangChain, LangGraph, and other things on hosting server and providing them directly will save huge costs, right? Like, means I'm just cost wise, like that subscription fee itself is so huge, and the usage once transaction increase, that's multiplying. So, is there any slides or anything which you have which says, like, means how to decide? See, it's not about comfortability factor here. It's about the costing and and the use case for which
Right.
it need to. That's the my query was. Yeah.
Right. And it really, so again, like, there is what I tell everybody for this stuff, and it's the same thing with like just using an API instead of hosting your own LLM, right? Where for some clients, they're like, they know ChatGPT, right? And so that's what they want. They want that OpenAI API. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. And like, to get it off the ground, it's going to be less expensive for you because, you can get a whole bunch of tokens, hundreds of thousands of tokens for dollars, right? And if they're not going to be using it that much, then that is just much cheaper. Hosting their own LLM is going to be like $1,000 a month, probably something like that, unless they really think about how to batch process and only turn it on at certain points in time and whatever. But if they are going to have a lot of volume, then And part of it is just it can be just a mathematical calculation, right? Like this is what you're going to pay for this. That's what you're going to pay for that. Some of it's a little bit easier where it's like, okay, like this is a small company. They're only using this so much. They just need one worker to be able to interact with this workflow. That person could just press this button, watch it, and then see everything happen, or it just triggers, time of day. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Just keep them at an end. And then at the other end, it's like, no, they're going to be processing 10,000 calls a day. This is just a huge volume. They obviously need to have their own microservice and run it through there. And this is a much bigger project. They need to be prepared to pay for it. The middle part, the gray, that is complicated and where exactly that line is drawn. But I do feel like people do tend to shift into those buckets, right?
Yeah. So why
Yep.
why I'm asking that? Because see, when cloud boom came, virtual machines came. If they are
Yep.
not used, they used to charge heavily, although you're not using. That's why there came a concept where you use whenever required and stop that, they won't cost. So there are some models evolved, like means they burned their fingers and then they evolved and they've written that the mega scripts and they used to handle that. But now as LLMs and these technologies and so many AIs and so many wrappers coming, there is no effective mechanism of cost wise, use case wise, cost wise solutions. I feel in the industry which need lot of focus. I think if we can provide that knowledge, that will be very good for so many use cases, so that they can effectively utilize that and make productive. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And well, it's 11 a.m. for me. I don't know what time it is for everybody else, but our hour coaching call is up. Tomorrow is going to be the Dr. Jeff special. I was originally going to go over the 2,000 templates plus from GitHub. I am going to show that probably very quickly tomorrow, just so we can show it. However, I did not have a great experience with those templates, and I just want to kind of go over that. And I think I'm going to have something else for the rest of the call. But I will see everyone tomorrow. Same bat place, same bat time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.